So today I just want to go off script and try something a bit new for the channel. I want to utilise the brand new Overwatch League viewer to have a specific look at the Seoul Dynasty and their two rosters, and just give my own thoughts and opinions, as well as just point out a few sort of key plays and really nice things I think they did during their two series against the Charge and the Mayhem this week. But before I just get into it, I just want you guys to let me know any questions you have for a Q&A that I'm planning on doing hopefully next week or so. I'd love to hear as many as possible, so just be sure to drop them down in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter, and I think that'll be great for a video next week. As for the Overwatch League view, if you're not aware, for this stage and moving forward, there's now a client you can get in Battle.net, which lets you, which you can download for free, and it will let you go over the games and view them in this client. You can view it from each player's individual perspective, or from like a free camera, and it's going to be really useful, I think, moving forward from like analysis and stuff. So I'm really excited for it myself. So let's just get straight into it, and I'm just going to start with just putting in the background Seoul's game against the Mayhem. Let's start on Oasis. And this was interesting, as I've been hearing rumours throughout the off season, seeing a few pictures and stuff. But Seoul was trying out a new roster, as we saw leaked against Toronto, which did feature Fisher, Fitz, and Fletter in with Hailey. What's interesting though is this also had Toby starting, which was interesting, as Jexa was the one in the other picture. And what I thought was interesting is this lineup just looks very aggressive on paper. It looks like one that can run triple DPS, but it's not something they actually showed throughout this entire series. Hailey, I thought, as you can see already, played outstandingly throughout this series. I thought he had a really good game, but as did the rest of Seoul, really. And I thought, as expected, they were quite aggressive, and I think that's suited their style and everything a lot. But I was just surprised by how coordinated and really strong these guys look, albeit against Florida. But I think it's a great start, given this is a side we've never seen play before at all. Especially with Fletter now actually playing Brig, which was something he wasn't playing before, as that was Munchkin's normally. Although I think he actually played it really well. Overall, I think from what we've seen and what we can see even now, the style of this roster, as I say, is quite aggressive, which plays into Fisher's style. You see when Fisher goes in aggressively, you know, Fitz joins him, Fletter joins him, Toby's there on the front lines as well, and it all sort of plays into this sort of great dynamic, which I think was the problem with running Fisher before, in that the team would, whether that was through shot calling or just different approaches from different players, from like Jaehong, for example, it's just a bit more passive. But I just think most of the players in this roster sort of complemented each other quite nicely, and that made for a really good effort on the whole. I mean, Hailey, I thought, was really good in this series, as was Michelle as usual and everything. Hailey does play very aggressively himself, and I think the commentators did say this on their broadcast, which was he is known for peeking, and there were points in this series where he was caught out for peeking. In fact, let's have a look at Hailey's play himself. What I like is he's being very proactive with, you know, with his right clicks. He's looking for picks all the time. He's looking just to be always involved in the action. As you see, he's playing, you know, quite high up, as normally you could see Zen even playing to his right, further back, a bit deeper. That was a nice disengagement though. But overall, I think he really did display some really nice stuff, which I wasn't entirely sure of, given that, excuse me, given we hadn't seen him play up to now, and, you know, this is his first game. So given how well he played, I think really does show that Seoul have some really good potential here moving forward. That said, let me just fast forward this a bit further forward. That said, why do I think Seoul decided to make this move? I think for quite some time now, even from looking at the first season, slow that down. Even from looking at the first season, they really were really keen to have a really like filled out and thick roster with a lot of players which they could develop and improve with. And like as we saw with last year, they had Bunny, they had Zephyr, they had Kuki. So I think it's something they've been kind of just as an organisation wanting to really sort of develop and sort of have since well even before ALV began as Lunatic High itself. Did have quite a few roster changes over the years with you know, old players like Esker and Guido and, you know, players like that, you know, being parts of a lineup. So it's not exactly something new for the org in itself. Let's switch back over to Fisher, just so we can see his POV for this bit. So it's something. It's not too much of a surprise. Although at first when I saw this, I thought this was more of them maybe taking a more aggressive approach to how they want to run their org and everything this season, or this stage even. But what we then saw was them bring out their other 6 players against Charge, which I found very interesting, in the sense that it then appears that they do actually have 2 teams now, and according to Munchkin, they've been apparently scrimming that way and been practicing in that manner, with having 2 teams that they've been running, which is interesting because it means that they're actively making this sort of a stylist having this as a stylistic point of view. If I then switch over just very quickly to this other game, let's take Hollywood for instance. I think it was a good one to show this other roster. This roster on paper looks a lot more passive, shall we say, in that it has, or maybe not passive is the right word, but more flexible in the sense that Marvel has shown that he, rather than just being all-out aggressive, can play a very counter-attacking, patient style, which I think actually comes across with a lot of the players, especially Jaehong. Jaehong pops off and flourishes when he's in an environment which promotes him having to play more of a backline, but sort of trying to get picks, trying to charge up his ult, that sort of style, rather than trying to be on the front line like Twilight, or getting the consistent first pick in team fights, like in the case of why does his name escape me? Black Violet, there we go. Apologies for that. What I think was really, really interesting about this 6, which we can see now, and it's something that I thought would be seen more in the other roster, was their ability to run triple DPS. Jaehong I thought was outstanding actually on Ana. If I just switch over to his point of view, but I thought he was really, like, his Ana has actually been, obviously everyone knows his Ana's great, but there's obviously been some doubts and questions about how good he still is on the hero, given that he hasn't had to play it. But I think any doubts at all have been, expelled entirely, given how well when he's flexed onto Ana, how well he's played. Although it's interesting to note that he does play a far more proactive, aggressive style than a lot of other Anas you see. His damage is a lot higher statistically than others, and just looking at this POV, we'll see, quite a lot of time. Look here, he's looking to play make. He's not looking to sit behind Marvel and to make sure he's like at 100% or whatever. So he's trying to constantly put out damage, consistently make sure that he's being aggressive and everything. I think there's a moment coming up which is just ridiculous, but shows why he's still one of the best at the position, arguably one of the best Anas in the world. Like, oh, bloody hell! Like, that is actually disgusting, the reaction on that. But that's the sort of thing he's been known for and been famous for all these years. And what surprised me is just, in terms of going back to the 2 rosters, on paper you would argue or potentially suggest that the other one is potentially their first team roster, or like if they were having an A or B team. But that argument kind of falls away, given that they were playing the Mayhem, and the Charge are, I think, universally regarded as the better of the teams. So you know, it's a weird argument to make for, you know, they're considered an A or a B team because, you know, if in that way you would normally think, you know, Michelle, Toby, Fletter, Fisher, you know, Fitz, given how what's been playing, you know, you'd expect them to. Oh Jesus! Oh yeah, this is one Marvel misses somehow. I don't know. Maybe he is the B team after all. No idea. But yeah, so I think that kind of dispels any argument that is like an A or B team. But I think it is like a stylistic difference, where this one seems to be just a lot more flexible in that it will be a lot more reactionary to situations. Oh, this is a good anti-nade. Yeah, that's a really good anti-nade from Jae-hong. But yeah, so I think it's that sort of idea which I think Seoul are looking to develop and utilize moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see, at least coming up in the next few series, if they are utilizing these two sides, either if they're going to utilize them stylistically. So, for example, if they're playing against like a shock or whatever, whether they want to opt into a more aggressive or a reactionary style will be interesting to see. Or if over time they try and, you know, blend and merge the two together. Because the thing is, aside from London and potentially Philly, there isn't really a kind of a precedent for the 12-man roster. And even then, like for London and Philly, it wasn't really fully utilised. I mean, last season particularly, we did see like those two teams in particular, and they got arguably the most success out of it, given they were our two teams in the grand final. So throughout the season, you know, they were chopping and changing. And it was normally it was around about 10 players to be more fair, rather than a full 12. You know, as we saw, like Sado and Hotba getting more playtime for the end of season 1, and for London, you know, you saw their two, so your C9 Kongdu and GC Busan squads gets, you know, split playtime and stuff. But in both of those cases, it eventually ended up as like a 6 or 7 man team, which they were most happy with. And from what I've heard, at least from other analysts' points of view, is I think that's where they think this sort of idea is best utilized, and they think Seoul are most likely going to end in that way. But in this case, I'm not entirely sure if that will be true, just based on the fact that you know, they actually have 12 really, or just at least at worst, good players. And I don't really think you could say that anyone's a real weakness over anyone else really in the squad. It's not like a Sado who is obviously a major weakness on the side of Philly, or, you know, someone like Krillin who I'm sure is very talented, but just from what we've seen on stage, just fails to, you know, live up to the quality or, you know, potential of, you know, his teammate Badosin. But so I think it'll be really interesting coming up to see what Seoul do with this lineup, and, you know, see what they do moving forward. Something I do want to see, something I have noticed, or not noticed, but something I think will become more of an important thing, and maybe this is Seoul just getting ahead of the curve. But with localization next year, that was really nicely played from Jae-hong. He did that all day, and then when Hailey got subbed at the end, they just completely shut down Eileen Sombra for most of the day. But yeah, something I noticed, something I've realised is that with localization from next year, what we're going to be seeing a lot more often, well, what I think we're going to be seeing is these rosters will get bigger, because obviously with 2 6-man rosters, at worst, Seoul can scrim each other if they have to, if that's the situation they find themselves in. And I think what's important to like note or remember is that because we don't really fully know how localization for next year is going to work exactly. We have, you know, rough ideas of, you know, the sorts of things Blizzard's looking to employ and that sort of idea. But I think it'll be interesting to know if they're all based in, if they're obviously all based in like Seoul or whatever, they have the opportunity to run internal scrims. They'll be able to get, you know, more scrims against other teams, I think, as well. It also means that if they want to, they won't have to, for example, send everyone for an away game For example, if you don't think stylistically you need to send everyone, you could actually have a case where you have, you know, the team you want to run in your fixtures away from home, whilst your team remains, your other, you know, roster remains at home. It gives you that flexibility, which I think is going to be really important moving forward. And I think, also, Seoul's in a great position in that with the home games coming next year, I think something people are going to begin to realize is that actually certain teams have regional advantages, simply with Koreans wanting to, you know, stay in Korea presumably for most of the time. Like if they want to be based in Korea still, they might primarily choose to remain, you know, in a Korean organization like Seoul, rather than have to, you know, move home to like New York or Philly or wherever really, which I think is something that even just in its own name and its own creation, this gives the dynasty an advantage moving forward. You see here, Seoul's defense I think is really clean, you know, coordinated. I felt like with this team especially as well, they always stayed as a 6-man. There was a lot less influence on the individual play and like sort of the team play. Not to say there wasn't team play with the others, but I felt like there was more of a core unit with this lot rather than an aggressive push by Fisher or Fletter that was then followed up by picks from Hiley or, you know, Fitz coming in on Zarya. And I thought Munchkin especially was surprising because Zumba and Jaehong, of course, were fantastic as they normally are. But I thought Munchkin was really, really, really good on Zarya, which was surprising given that, you know, we've just seen him on Rig Jail this entire time. Again, Jaehong again, fantastic on there. So yeah, I think Seoul's a team we've definitely got to watch out for moving forward for this stage and also in the coming stages, to see how they develop this roster, whether they keep it together, whether they look to trade players afterwards, that sort of idea. Because I think it's something that, you know, may become a bigger factor, you know, moving forward in terms of how teams and orgs operate and, you know, run, as it were, in terms of whether they actually look to expand their rosters for the, you know, for the ability to run internal scrims, for the ability to be flexible, for the ability to potentially target different teams. I mean, obviously, one of the massive advantages this... Oh wow, that's impressive. Mid-air. One of the actual things it does do as well is it also makes it extraordinarily hard for teams to prepare for Seoul now if they do continue to run these two separate rosters. Like, they've got Paris and the Shock coming up, surely. I mean, what did Paris and the Shock do? I mean, they can't exactly... I'll skip forward through this. They can't exactly prep for, you know, for Seoul. They can't particularly prepare for Seoul's first team or second team specifically, because they can't really tell, and I assume they don't have really the time and resources to put all that effort and energy into preparing that much for it. I just want to quickly zoom on because I remember, I think this was, yes. So if I slow it down just a little bit, I think there is some hope. Yeah, so Munchkin wins this fight for Seoul with a great grab, which Jexa follows up on nicely. But for this one, I want to swap over to Jaehong. So I want to. This I thought was fantastic when this happened. I think this just summed up the series between them. And particularly it's the fact that Jaehong has his trans and Eileen has his EMP. And we'll just watch it from a couple of angles. That is just... The timing on that and the reaction on that is actually phenomenal. So strong. In fact, let me just pause back a second. That's what I love about this feature. You can just bring it back 10 seconds or so. If I go spectate overlay. Oh, might even need to go back a bit further. Let's go back that far. Oh. Let's go Eileen. And then free cam. There we go. Oh, okay. That's a slight glitch that Bad Patch Mari pointed out yesterday. So if we play from here, I think this is really, really good to see how Jaehong plays this. So as you can see, so Eileen comes in here, he reveals himself, then, and Jaehong literally goes around the corner. Doesn't matter, it's a 3-man EMP, perfectly timed Transcendence. And I think that's something you're seeing a lot of Zens be really good at nowadays against the Sombra, even though it's being run quite a bit. Raucus, to his credit, was really good against Sabi Olby at running that. And that's the sort of thing, you know, we're seeing a lot more often with Zens, just being, you know, almost being accustomed and practiced to running that sort of, you know, defense against it. And then Seoul, again, as they did all day, were just really clinical about, you know, picking up kills and finishing team fights, which I thought was fantastic. So yeah, that's all I really want to say on Seoul. I mean, as I say, it'll be very interesting to see what they do moving forward, whether they do opt to, you know, run 2 separate rosters, or if in fact they do over time sort of amalgamate the 2 into one, into the 6 or 7, you know, players they think they are the best fit. But personally, I think actually having these 2 separate rosters could come in really handy, and I think moving forward as well brings them a lot of potential and opportunity, which I think potentially with how localization will work could be a sort of, you know, Seoul ahead of the curve over everyone else. That's it. I just want to quickly end by having a look at this moment on Havana, and I'm sure many of you might already know where I'm going with this, which is just the ending, which I thought was particularly terrible from Florida, and I already know from the experience of some Florida fans how angry they were with this. Okay, I need to go back a little bit further. But so yeah, this was honestly, it's amazing work from Seoul. Okay, here we are. This will be the one. So, last fight territory. Mayhem only have to get to here. The cart's here. Final fight. They've got massive ult advantage going into it. We see some preparation. And this is what I love about this player. It's just the free roam and being able to go in one by one. Now, what I think is one of the worst things for the Mayhem in this entire fight is you see the carts going backwards. And I think what really killed them here was the fact that they had little to no point pressure this entire time. So Michelle scouts him out, he returns to his team. It's more of just a early poke thing. Fate's taken quite a bit of damage. He actually had a really good game, actually. I think that's really undersold in how Mayhem played so poorly, although they did improve in the second half. So they engage into here, then EMP I think comes out. Still, look, no point pressure, which I think is key. You have a Graviton from Zephyr, a 5-man EMP, still no point pressure, that's 2 kills. Finally you get some point pressure, but the problem is that, you know, whilst they're killing everyone on Seoul on the outside, Chris isn't even focusing on Michelle, but Michelle's being able to get some stall out on the cart, and he gets a really nice, you know, so even though it's from Florida, it's actually alright, you know, focus play, and they're able to, you know, kill some, you know, they're able to pick up Fisher, they're able to kill Toby, they're able to get these kills. Hagupun inexcusably wastes his trans there, and I think that does come back to haunt them especially. Michelle, as I said, he's still contesting the car. It's exceptional work how long he does it for. He dies. Then this is what I love about the Korean teams, especially when they do this. They're exceptionally good at, you know, stalling out the cart and knowing whose job it is to go on to the point, whose job it is. Hailey gets in, he stalls the cart. Illicit pops down with Fitz on the high ground, just pumping out ridiculous damage. They have now ults online. They also have spawn advantage. And all their ults, because the fight's gone on so long, are starting to come online. They now pick up 3 kills from what was basically one person touching a cart at a time with 2 people alive. Fate does eventually hit a shatter, but it's just not enough, because, you know, all of the Seoul reinforcements are coming in, and in the end, it's honestly one of the worst moments of play I think I've actually seen in AL this year. Just how poorly executed that was from the Mayhem, really, in the sense that they won the team fight. They just never had a point presence. They never focused the players focusing carts, and even then, it just took them so long to get every kill down. It just killed them in the end. But yeah, I think I'll leave it with that. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, I'm looking to utilize this feature a lot more and do some a lot more analysis and things like that in the future, utilizing this sort of feature. By all means, utilize it yourself. I think it's a great feature, and it's been sorely missing for quite some time. But I'm really happy to see it included now. But yeah, I'd like to thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll probably just be posting my day one predictions on Twitter tomorrow. So again, follow me there. Probably no video, but I'll be back again on Friday with my review of the first day of week 2's action. So like and subscribe if you enjoyed this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.